not for public distribution. So my critics say, hey, you know, this film that I'm about to show you is widely available. It's not. It never appeared anywhere until my film came out. And then the key parts that I'm about to show you, and they're, you know, quickly released film to prove it's no big deal, they delete what I'm about to show you. So here is the most damning evidence right here. Here's the beginning of the clip. And what you'll hear is a third track of audio of the CIA prompting the astronauts not to speak until 4 seconds have gone by. Now, what this footage is, and I have an unedited reel of like an hour to an hour and a half of virtually the same shot over and over again. They're claiming that this is a little blue Earth, you know, halfway to the moon looking back, when in fact, this is a circular window of the spacecraft, outside of which is the Earth and low Earth orbit. Now, originally I said it's kind of part of the Earth out the window, which it does look like, but another cinematographer pointed out is what they did is they took a transparent photograph, like a slide or an X-ray that was color. They put it over the circular window. So it's a circular window and, of course, the circular Earth. And they've backlit it with Earthshine. Now, this is still the window. You can see the little, you know, 2 to 3 inch indentation here, like on a ship, because it's a, you know, pressurized bulletproof window, I presume. And, first of all, if they're halfway to the moon, there would be a radio delay. So it would take 2 seconds for the radio signal to go out, 2 seconds for them to come back. They're actually in Earth orbit. This is, you'll see clear proof in a second here why they're still in Earth orbit, you know, or proof that they are. They can't leave Earth orbit for a number of reasons. They don't have enough fuel. They don't have radiation protection and so forth. And what, by them faking being halfway to the moon proves they didn't go to the moon. Otherwise, they wouldn't be faking it, right? And it also proves that the limit is Earth orbit, because they can't even leave Earth orbit. And what a surprise. 50 years later, they still cannot leave Earth orbit. Isn't that interesting, right? You know, if Toyota said they built a car that could go 50,000 miles on a gallon of gasoline, and yet 5 decades later, their best car can only go 50 miles, you would say the previous claim was a forgery. It's so obvious. And yet people don't see that because of their emotional attachment and their pride, which blinds them from seeing the truth, which you're about to see, hopefully with an open mind. So what we have here, I'm about to play, NASA's going to talk, and then there's going to be exactly a 4-second delay. Remember, a pretend 2 seconds out, halfway to the moon, a pretend 2 seconds back. Then you're going to hear the CIA whisper in Neil Armstrong's private channel earpiece, which on this unedited version we hear. Then you're going to hear crystal clear, no radio EQ like, you know, the astronauts in orbit or NASA with a little muffled walkie-talkie type sound. No, this person is where the tape's being recorded. It's crystal clear. He's prompting them to say talk. Now, in spacecraft films, when they release this segment, they delete out talk. Isn't that interesting? Why would they delete out evidence of the fraud unless it proved the fraud? If they left it in there, it would prove the fraud, and the fact that they edited it out also proves the fraud, because it proves they're trying to cover up. Let's just take a look and a listen.
Hello, Apollo 11. Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over.
Okay, so according to NASA, there is nobody on this channel except Houston Control and the astronauts, right? This is an open, non-military, you know, real flight to the moon, allegedly, right? But who's this third party prompting them, you know, to speak? Let's take a listen again. Let's go back just a hair farther so you can hear NASA first.
Hello, Apollo 11. Houston, Goldstone says that the TV looks great. Over.
You see that? They were waiting 4 seconds. then said talk. See, if he answered right away, it would give away the fact that he's really close to the Earth, because there's supposed to be a 2-second radio delay going out, a 2-second delay coming back. So the CIA told them, do not answer until you hear us say talk. That's on the tape. That's what Spacecraft Films edited out. It's amazing. You'll hear exactly what I showed you, except talk is no longer in there in their DVD of the shot, which only came out after my film to say that this footage proves nothing, right? When what you're going to see is going to scare you like it scared me, okay? Here's the next shot. Here's where they admit that these TV pictures are not live. See, they claimed that all these transmissions coming from the moon were live. Okay, I'm a filmmaker. What we do is we pre-record things, we edit them, we make them look good, and then we play them back later. You're going to hear them discuss the very same thing because they thought these conversations would be edited out. Mind you, this is an unedited reel, an hour and a half long, and they only showed the public about 20 seconds of it. But we have all the private conversations, the outtakes of the mistakes, and the CIA telling them not to talk until 4 seconds go by to create a fake radio delay as if they're halfway to the moon, when in fact they're in Earth orbit. So here they are discussing the fact that this is not live, as we were led to believe, but actually edited, prearranged special effect.
Roger, Neil. We just wanted a narrative such that we can, when we get the playback, we can sort of correlate what we were saying. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that playback remark doesn't appear in any NASA footage, any DVD about the moon landings. It's only in this presentation here. Okay? Now, here is Neil Armstrong claiming this is the part that they did show to the world. Okay? This is the best take of it. You know, again, the camera is really away from the window. This is what you're seeing in a minute, but these are the walls of the spacecraft in Earth orbit. And then here's the window of the spacecraft, outside of which is the Earth shine coming very brightly through, filling the whole window. And they put a little photograph of the Earth over here. And then they inserted a little crescent piece of black material to make it look like what's called the Terminator line, dividing night and day. So this is the footage that NASA claims, and Neil Armstrong is about to claim that this is genuine footage of being halfway to the moon.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Here.
Okay, so he's claiming that this is 130,000 miles out, right? Okay, that's what he's claiming. And then he's claiming here that the lens is right up against the window, which it would have to be. Okay, so if you're halfway to the moon and this is the Earth, you know, behind you, right, then you're going to have to have that lens right up against the glass.
We only have one window that has a view of the Earth, and it's filled up with the TV camera.
Okay, so Neil Armstrong just said they only had one view of the Earth. It's filled up with the TV camera, meaning the lens is right up against that glass to shoot that tiny Earth far away. That's what he's claiming, right? Well, let's just take a look at it again. Okay, here is the actual location of the camera, right? Remember, this is the very same shot that he said a moment ago was the Earth, you know, floating in space, right? Okay, we don't need the audio here. So here, okay, so this is the Earth floating in space. He just said this was the Earth floating in space. But this is the part they thought wasn't being recorded and never to be broadcast. This is the unedited reel. This is a work light inside of the spacecraft here. Either that or it's a giant UFO, right? Floating around the Earth, right? And now you're going to see them remove part of the crescent insert and the photograph in front of the window. That's Buzz Aldrin doing that right there. Faking it. They also say this is the way 10 did it. Apollo 10 faked it the same way. And then you're going to see the real location of the Earth and the window. And the window is actually, that's the window right there. So all the time, this was the window of the spacecraft. See how bright the Earth is? This is Earth shine. They're in Earth orbit, right? They just said that this shot, you know, was 130,000 miles away from the Earth, right? And yet, which in fact we can take a look at them side by side here. Here's the wide shot, right? And then here he is saying he's, halfway to the moon or 130,000 miles out.
Roger, Houston, Apollo 11. Calling in from about 130,000 miles out.
Okay, so that's supposed to be the Earth floating in space. Now let's take a look at it over here, right? And let's take a look at it. Okay, so to the right is 130,000 miles out, according to NASA and Neil Armstrong, right? That's the Earth over there on the right. But wait a minute, it's not. It's the window. They're using a 1 foot diameter circular photograph of the Earth, putting it on top of the circular window. And now here they are breaking down the shot, the photograph, in order to get ready for an interior showing the astronauts. You know what I mean? So there they are. There's proof right there that it's a fake shot. Here's even an outtake here when an astronaut's arm gets in front of the window. Look at this. Oh my goodness. So if that's really the Earth floating in space, that must be the arm of God going right in front of it. Oh my goodness. So this is the smoking gun. This is them faking being halfway to the moon. Okay. There they are getting ready, and there they open the iris, and there's Micheal Collins, and there's the very bright Earth out the window. Want to look at that one more time? In fact, let's just make that big screen. Oh, it's really not the Earth floating in space. It's really a special effect with the circular window. Now, when I saw this, I said to myself, oh my gosh, they really didn't go to the moon, just like Bill Casing said. I called him up. I'm like, oh my gosh, they really didn't go to the moon. They really didn't go to the moon. I have them faking being halfway to the moon, right? They're only faking being halfway because they couldn't go halfway. Do you understand that? Which proves they didn't go to the moon. If they're faking being halfway to the moon, it's because they can't go halfway to the moon, which means they didn't go to the moon. And what a surprise. 50 years later, the same thing. They cannot leave Earth orbit 50 years later. And Bill's like, well, I told you so, but I still wanted to believe that they went. Now, it's not because I loved science or because I, wanted America to be great, although I do want America to be great. It's that I didn't want humanity to be so deplorable, despicable, that we would stoop so low to such a thing. Now, even my critics of this film admit that this is fake footage of Apollo 11 pretending to be halfway to the moon. They admit it. So the critics say, well, they were just rehearsing for an upcoming telecast. Really? Then if the mission cost about $1 million a minute, right? And every ounce, is precious because of all the fuel necessary to lift them off the ground, why would they bring an elaborate model of the Earth when the real one was right outside the window? So if they were really halfway to the moon and they were really rehearsing, they would just rehearse with the real Earth out the window rather than creating a fake model of it. I mean, it's unbelievable. They make an excuse for them faking being halfway to the moon right in front of your eyes. They still make an excuse for it. It just amazes me how they keep making excuses no matter what evidence there is. I even talked with a college professor of an aerospace department, and he said, I asked him, what if one of the Apollo astronauts confessed on national TV that we didn't go to the moon? You know what he said? He said, I'd still believe anyway. That is amazing, isn't it? You know what I mean? I just don't get this. If Toyota claimed their car could go 1,000 times farther on a gallon of gas 50 years ago, but today it can only go 1,000th as far, you would easily see the forgery. But people don't see that today they can only go 1,000th as far as 50 years ago. I mean, come on. They'd be in another solar system by now. They would have been on Mars 40 years ago.